Today is 26 March 2025. I just got a video from a friend in the Darien Gap showing U.S. Army soldiers in a village called Gana. So in the video that was just sent by my friend in the Darien, you'll see our U.S. Army soldiers are in that village called Gana, which is circled in yellow by those two bridges that are in the video that I published yesterday, the road that will connect to Colombia and thus connecting the continents, North and South America. As a point of interest, in the not too distant past, there were believed to be white Indians in this exact area and other areas of Panama. I came across this book a couple of weeks ago in the library in Panama City while researching more of the history of that area, and was surprised to find this book on white Indians, exactly where they're building the bridges. And so without further ado, let's show the video of the U.S. Army soldiers out there. I'm told, by the way, the Secretary of Defense, Hegseth, will be here in a couple of weeks, and he should be down in the Darien as well. Ants are amazing. I grew up in Florida, and there's a lot of ants in Florida, many different types, and some are quite capable of defending themselves, as every Florida child learns, or certainly the ones who play like I did. And as time went on, in my deep interest in science, which continues today, I read a scientific book on ants when I was a kid, and from there my interest in ants just increased. And I've always respected ants, which became quite interesting to me later when I realized Japanese respect ants so much that Japanese call ants ari. Ari means insects of loyalty. And not only do they call them ari, insects of loyalty, but they call them ari-san, which is like Mr. Ant of loyalty. It's a double sort of respect. And so it's interesting that I grew up respecting ants without having any knowledge that Japanese on the other side of the world teach their children to respect ants. And they love the industriousness and loyalty of the ants. And so all my life I've watched what ants do, and they're amazing. Some ants are farmers. They learn through stigmergic learning. And they also engineer, and they fight wars, they farm, they do amazing things. They build sidewalks, they build bridges, they can find their way in the dark and in the light. I made this video of the ants with the grain of rice out in the jungle in the Darien Gap. I was with some Indians, and we watched them for a while. And you can see here some people are afraid that ants will learn how to read and take over the world, which is a possibility given what the ants are capable of doing. I came across these leafcutter ants deep out in the jungle in the Darien Gap. I was with some Indians, and you can see they make their little highways. They're easy to track. I've tracked ants in different countries. Some ants are kind of hard to track, but leafcutter ants, look, the leafcutter ant trail is not much smaller than the human trail. You can see there's the human trail, and they were showing me a bird up there, but I was more interested in the ants actually. But even notice that they'll even make their own little ant sidewalk here. There's ants going back the other direction that have already taken their leaves. These are farmers. These ants, they use these leaves to farm fungus. And actually cane toads eat these ants, and then people make drugs out of the cane toads. But look at this. There's a muddy part here where they actually lay the leaves down and so they don't get their little ant feet stuck. But yeah, look at this. These ants are so easy to track, and they can go a good 100 yards from their nest. But again, some ants, when you're tracking them, are a little bit more difficult. I'll turn around here, and you'll see where they made a little sidewalk across a muddy part. But what's interesting is the stigmergic learning as well. See, they're both engineers. They clear the path. They make the path better. They make their own nest, of course. But they use stigmergic learning, which is hive learning, which is the way that we develop our own paths. The human paths through this area are made through the same methods. So this is where we're at. I'm going to talk about how we have come through. When did people start using this area as a land between the seas and a land between the continents? Nobody knows. It's clear that various sorts of people have come and gone with the tides, but possibly people came across the Bering Straits back when they could walk across, or maybe they boated. Who knows? But one thing led to another, and people ended up being all across North and South America. And some people believe that they came all the way down through Asia, walked or boated down, and ended up down through the Darien Gap. And then the tides have come and gone in both directions since then. Now, more within the realm of recorded history, Christopher Columbus set sail, and this is what the world looked like when he came. So keeping in mind, Christopher Columbus was basically the scout ant. It was a There Be Dragons map, and it certainly turned out to be such. More accurately stated, this may have been what he thought the world looked like. Look at this map. There's no North America or South America on it. They didn't know that two major continents even existed. So he thought he was going to sail right over from Spain straight over to Cathay, China, or over to India. It was called Cathay back then, China. So just imagine that. We're only talking like 530 years ago, right? And imagine that. If you planted an oak tree back when he set sail, that oak tree would still be very young, actually. It would only be 530 years old. It would be basically in oak tree years. It would be like a teenager. So think about that. We have a very new understanding of even the geography of planet Earth. Even the surface geography, our understanding is relatively very new. And so after he came over and they started mapping this thing out, they immediately realized, though, that one of the most important places was right here, Panama. They're very smart people, very capable people. For instance, when they would come to a place like Panama, these explorers, and they were trying to keep going and find where this thing ends up at another ocean, they would literally take off and either take their ships apart and reassemble them somewhere else, like in a river, as soon as the rivers were big enough to go down, or they would literally go somewhere else and make a new boat. I mean, like ants, they would sail up the shore, walk across, and make a new boat. I mean, these are very serious people. These weren't like cruise line passengers. Incredible men like Balboa had incredible sponsors, and they did incredible things. They opened up the Americas, and the world changed forever. Indigenous people from countless cultures and languages, many which will remain unknown forever, were all across the Americas, and many of those were gone without ever being recorded who they were. In fact, there were believed to be white Indians in the Darien. I've got a book on them, actually, and many things like this. And Balboa opened the first settlement on the mainland Americas in 1510, where that yellow arrow is. It was called Santa Maria la Antigua del Darien. Now, there were settlements on the islands, such as at what's now Dominican Republic and also Puerto Rico, but in the mainland, the first Western settlements the first one was at Santa Maria la Antigua del Darien. It lasted from 1510 to 1524 until the Indians and other things wiped it out. And that was the first cathedral also. They moved the cathedral to, you can see where it was out my window here in Panama City. It's in Casco Viejo, and it burned down, but it's still, it's been rebuilt over and over due to various disasters along the way. But that was where it started, and there's a reason why they picked that place for the settlement, because it is the perfect place, or let's say a good place, to start making a path between the seas. It was Balboa who first, from the Western empires, spotted the Pacific Ocean, which they called the South Sea, and he claimed the South Sea for Spain. And so he was eventually beheaded in Darien as well by the governor of Darien. And actually Balboa had been the governor of Darien, but the next governor, a subsequent governor, then beheaded him at a place called Akla. You see this old map of trails, and if you were to freeze it and look at this closely, you'll see it's a lot of trails over a lot of time, and those are the same trails. Many of those trails, especially the ones down the Darien, are the same ones that the invaders use today, right? So the ant trails, we're back to the ant trail, we're back to the stigmergic thing. The paths that have been made from centuries ago are still open and have been used throughout time, right? And so these are the paths that have been now used since, especially in the last 4 years, to bring in roughly 1.4 million just during the Biden administration. Now we're going to talk in detail about how this is expanding. A road is being built through the Darien Gap to Colombia. Some people say this road is impossible to build. Those people are wrong. One man told me this while we were standing next to the Panama Canal while a ship was going through. I assure you, the road is being built. I'm the one that found it. In fact, I tracked it back the same way I tracked the ants. I tracked their mud tracks. Also, I look at old maps because I was always taught since some young age to look at old maps and read old things. The clues are in there. The indigenous people, the routes that our ancestors took were the same routes that the indigenous people take. The routes that the indigenous people take are the routes that the animals take. This is that stigmergic optimization again. The animals take the smart, optimal routes. The indigenous people follow the animal trails. And then other people, like the Spaniards, came in and followed these myriad trails through the Darien Gap. It's quite passable. The things that make it difficult are obviously things like people out there killing you. But if you can get through that part and you know how to get through jungles, you can do it just fine. But if you want to build a road, well, that's child's play. That's a function of money. And it is occurring right now. I found it. Masako Ganaha and I and Vandersteel, we took Epoch Times down there, and Laura Loomer, Dr. Brett Weinstein, Dr. Chris Martinson, and many more we took down there. And so now I'm going to show you the bridges that are being built. And to be clear, this is Bridge 1 and 2 you're about to see. This is Bridge 1 is where we're starting.
Hey, Michael, can we interview you? Sure.
I'm going to be mostly silent so you can just watch this. They're speaking Spanish. That's Josh Phillip up front that just waved, and Matt Tomet wearing the hat.
It said signal area block.
Signal area block.
I had that. Interesting. I haven't seen that.
I had that like 10 times when I was flying here. Signal area.
320. 16 espacio 20. 1010. Esto aquí hay que tirar la línea también.
Todo el soto.
Hay que meter uno en el centro y repartir los demás espacios aquí para que quede, para que te den los 27. Va uno en todo el medio y el espacio donde está soto. Para que te salga 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 los grandes para poder tirar. Y con estos anillos.
Es una construcción. ¿Sabes si hay una puente para conectar Colombia a Panamá también? Pero en el futuro.
Puede ser.
¿Sí? ¿Piensas? Oí que hay alguien que está interesado en construir una puente para conectar Panamá y Colombia.
Pues en el futuro, depende de los gobiernos que vengan.
¿Y este es un proyecto del gobierno?
Sí, este es un proyecto del gobierno, pero aquí Darien necesita muchos proyectos. Darien
¿Y
necesita...
¿Cuánto cuesta para construir?
Pues aquí te dice son por lo menos 2 años. Está todo construido.
Pero yo oí que 6 millones de dólares, ¿sí?
O sea, eso sí no sé cuánto sería el presupuesto.
Pero ¿cuánto cuesta? ¿6?
No le podría decir. Ahí
Los números no.
presupuesto no sabría cómo decirlo.
Ese sí. Entonces son dos puentes iguales, del mismo diseño, que son dos puentes. Este y hay otro igual a ese en Pinogana.
Oh, ¿hay otro puente?
Igual a este, sí.
¿Dónde?
Cruzando, llegando para allá se conecta a Pinogana y a Palma.
So there's another
Ah,
bridge
mira.
that they're building too. This one, and then there's another one on the other side that they're building. ¿Qué es el otro?
Sí, se conecta, se va por todo el corte
Sí, este puente.
y allá hay otro puente.
¿Dónde?
Igual a este, allá en
¿A
Pinogana.
Colombia?
No, a otro pueblo de este, se llama Pinogana. Pinogana.
Pinogana?
Ajá.
They said that this bridge is connecting this village to this area, and then there's another bridge that's connecting this area to another pueblo called Pinaguana.
Okay, now that we're up in the drone, I'll narrate again. This is Bridge 1. Bridge 2 is behind us. That highway in front of you is Highway 1. If you take a left and drive for about 5 hours, you'll go over the Panama Canal. Continue to drive, you can go all the way to Alaska. So when this road is open to Colombia, this is a free shot to the United States. Now the camp infrastructure, the invasion camp infrastructure, is being increased, which is not far from here, right? So once this is open, the Trump administration is not dismantling these camps. I can't stress that enough. But this road is clearly being built. So Trump will be gone, even if he's the best guy in the world, he's going to be gone in 3 years, approximately, and this road eventually will be open. We must close the camps and defund the United Nations. This road is going to open sooner or later. The Chinese want it open. This is Bridge 2 right here. So you've already seen on the map, this is lined up along the historical route right here. This is it. Clearly going to Colombia. Everybody denies it, but look at my track record on getting it right in advance. I know it's going to Colombia for various reasons. And here it goes. It will be open. This is the road between Bridge 1 and this is Bridge 1. Bridge 2 is under us. So ahead is Bridge 1. So we'll fly that route. You'll see it. And this will be opening of the Darien Gap. That's what you're looking at. This is history being made. This gap has never been opened except for foot travel, and that's it. And you can boat around it, but now it's going to be huge traffic. Just during the Biden time, approximately 1.4 million came through the deadly hard routes. Imagine when this highway is open. This also is very dangerous for Colombia and for Panama. First of all, they are both big, juicy lambs with pork chops hanging around their neck. China is moving in hard into places like Ecuador and Panama and Colombia, right? And this will eventually, they're going to want to take it. You see, that's Yavitsa right there. That's the famous town I've told you about before, Yavitsa on the right. This is the end of the tidal waters where these two rivers come together. And there's a Spanish fort right where those two rivers come together on the left at the city. There's an old Spanish fort, I think a couple hundred years old. I've been there many times. And of course, the Spaniards actually ran out of there. This town here, Yavitsa, is filled with various sorts of people, numerous sorts of indigenous people and black people and Hispanic and a few white people as well. And so, but this town has been here a long time. You can actually get large boats here from the Pacific Ocean. So, large boats used to come here actually just to the right, not giant ships, but when the tide is up, you can get relatively large boats, especially a little bit downriver at a place called El Real. And so, this is probably part of the future as well with this. You can use this road to basically take the Darien Gap, all those trees. When this road is open, that virgin jungle is going to be cut down. You build the roads and the jungle dies. That's what happens. And that is, look at these. They told us this bridge was for yucca, to get yucca out. Does that look like a bridge for yucca? Look at that. It's quite serious materials and construction. This will be the end of the Darien Gap. And this is the flows that already occur of the Migrante, so to speak. And these are historical flows. It's going to get big. In closing, thank you for your support. As you know, this took years to develop the knowledge set to be able to even notice or say these things. I work like an ant as optimally as possible and as hard as possible, and I definitely need your sponsorship. Thank you for supporting financially, or sharing is very helpful as well. Any way that you can help is very much needed. Big times ahead, and you're going to need 24-karat truth.